right. Welcome to our show today. We have a very special guest. This is the master of DeFi. We have DeFi Dad. What is up, my dude? How you been, man?
Good. Yeah, thanks for having me back. Yeah, good to see you. I was saying a few minutes ago, that's your hair is what my hair looks like right now. I just
Twinsies, man.
I need a haircut so badly. Not that you need a haircut, but I can tell you I need one for sure.
This is the longest I've had it in my whole life, I think. So
really, yeah, me too. Mine is. I mean, I've grown it out long, but this is. Yeah, it's time for a haircut. I need to come out of quarantine and go get a haircut.
Well, I wanted to have you on today's show to unravel and kind of demystify some of these new hot topics inside the DeFi space, mostly regarding like yield farming, liquidity pools, and understanding the new buzz Yam with the latest breaking news of what happened. So let's start out with yield farming. Like, can you unpackage that idea and the concept and kind of break that down for us? What is it and how is it being applied in the space?
Yeah, so yield farming is really just stacking incentives or rewards to participate in a DeFi application. So the folks that I think of who really kicked off with yield farming, but it was called LP rewards, liquidity provider rewards, is Synthetics. Synthetics about a year ago, actually over a year ago, they were offering incentives like if you become a liquidity provider in the synthetic ether pool in Uniswap, we will pay you X amount of SNX every week. And it made sense because what they were trying to do is build a very liquid pool that would allow those that are trading on synthetics to be able to enter and exit the exchange. So this made a lot of sense. You know, they created an incentive to enable liquidity on synthetics and hence create a more reliable synthetics exchange. So now we've gotten to the point where we've got lots more incentives and programs that are being stacked on top of one another. So at the heart of this, yield farming is normally getting paid to provide money or lend money into a protocol. But it normally means that you're earning more than 2 or 3 different rewards at once. I mean, it can be as much as some of these yield farming programs, you're earning like 6 different types of rewards. Okay. The most common one, though, is let's talk about like a compound.
Okay.
You earn lending interest when you lend, but you also are earning the comp token, which is a governance token to give you a voice in the future of upgrades and proposals to it. But at the end of the day, the comp token sells on DEXs and also now on centralized exchanges. So you look at it this way, buyers and sellers have clearly assigned a price to it, even though Compound's intention is to decentralize governance. And so now as a lender, I'm earning lending interest plus a token that has a value to it. So that's really the simplest one. And that's the way to think about it, providing liquidity and earn multiple rewards. And I'd say the last piece of it, which I think is important in order to like maintain less degenerate yield farming, is you should be providing liquidity with assets that are already in your wallet and that are idle. Like in other words, like I don't go out and, we'll talk about yam.finance. Mm-hmm. I didn't buy Yam. Like there's no reason to. I was like, first off, it's questionable whether I should even participate. Right. Secondly, I'm just going to earn it by providing liquidity. That way, barring a smart contract bug that would, put my funds at risk, I'm going to walk away from this thing with all of my liquidity, all of my assets that I was lending, and I might have a token that's worth something. But if it's worth 0, who gives a shit? I walked away, and I lost some gas. But we'll talk about like obviously there are a lot worse things that can happen than what I described.
So all right, I have a couple questions. So you bring up some good points. Synthetic tokens. Can you break that down for us, for those who don't know what those are?
Yeah, so synthetics exchange, the purpose of synthetics, a lot of people miss this because there's so much yield farming or liquidity mining on synthetics. Synthetics' goal is to enable exposure to all sorts of different assets that otherwise would not be on Ethereum.
Hmm.
So you can go onto Synthetics and you can buy synths, which are an easier way to say it is a derivative. It
Okay.
is a derivative of Forex. So you've got, the different foreign currencies like the British pound or the Japanese yen. You have indices or in the future equities like the Nikkei 225. So you can gain exposure on chain with Ethereum by buying a synth of the Nikkei 225. Basically, like one day you'll see a synth of the New York Stock Exchange. I'm sure there will be lots of lawsuits then, but like whatever, it'll be exciting. One day I will buy, SGoog, a synth of Google in the future. It's just a matter of having a reliable price feed for it. So anyways, the main ones are Forex, equities, like stocks, and commodities like gold and silver. And then you also can even buy cryptocurrencies, synths of cryptocurrencies that are not on Ethereum, like, the Binance token. You can buy the TRX token. It's cool. It's just it's the idea that I thought we all were building towards, which was creating like a peer-to-peer finance system that is more frictionless. So anyways, that's
Yeah.
Synthetics in a nutshell. That's what a synth is.
Okay. No, I appreciate you breaking that down. Now, let's try to wrap our head around like some of the biggest risks associated with yield farming. I know you've walked me through that in the past, but
Yeah.
for our audience, can you kind of break down what are some of the risks associated with that? And then obviously you've highlighted the upside with doing yield farming.
Absolutely, yeah. So the risk is when you are yield farming and you're stacking these different rewards programs, you are also stacking risk. Each one of these programs or protocols, in most cases, it relates to maybe participating in different DeFi applications all at once. Every different protocol comes with smart contract risk. So let's think like a simple example is Synthetics has an incentive to pay anyone who is a liquidity provider in Curve. There is a stable coin pool with the synthetic SUSD dollar. So it makes sense. It's just like what we talked about earlier with the synthetic ether pool. They want this to be super liquid. Well, that's great, but I'm now exposed to Curve. And then if I take the it's called an LP token, but think of it, it's an IOU. If I put
Right.
my money into Curve, they give me an IOU so I can claim all my tokens,
Right.
through the application. I take the IOU token and I stake or deposit it into Synthetics, and then Synthetics knows that they can pay me because otherwise they wouldn't know that I was an LP. They need that IOU token. Well, now I've put trust in Synthetics. I've put trust in Curve. I also am now exposed to stable coins, which, any one of them, the peg could fail. So I'm stacking risk on top of risk. And because DeFi is so interwoven, like all these protocols are working together and they're super dependent on one another and they're very liquid. And, there's often nothing to prevent me from just taking my money and going elsewhere. It just means that there can be like a lot of systemic risk. If there's some black swan event and one of these stable coins fails, we're going to see lots and lots of like after effects to that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would say like it's smart contract risk. It's a little bit more of this like systemic risk we talked about. Pegged assets, which means like a stable coin or a tokenized version of Bitcoin. We always worry about whether those pegs will hold. You could have something like, I always call this out in videos, a liquidity crunch. A good example is in the Curve SUSD pool. If the amount of SUSD is continually depleted, if everyone is withdrawing SUSD, and let's pretend that I need SUSD to go back to Synthetics to give back my SUSD, to burn it, and to get back the SNX that I staked. Well, now I'm in a crunch because everyone has pulled their SUSD. It's stuff like that, or even like if you're in Compound, if I lend my money to Compound, let's say I lend DAI, and then 100% of the DAI pool is borrowed, well, I can't pull my money out. I have to wait for people to return it. even though they're over collateralized, and if they don't maintain their loan, they're going to get liquidated. It just means I could be stalled, and now I can't get my DAI to go pay back Maker before I get liquidated. So like all this stuff is so
Wow.
Everything is tied together, and you don't think about this until gas prices are at 300 and you have a Black Thursday like we did March 12th, when basically everyone was trying to pay back their DAI to prevent their Maker loans from getting liquidated, but no one could get back DAI because DAI was trading at like a 12% premium on all these different exchanges. So, it's just all sorts of wild stuff. I'd say the key takeaway though is it's a smart contract bug as always. You always have to be mindful and fearful of it. And that's why audits are important. That's why having better auditing standards are important, which is like outside of my expertise. But, I know the simpler way to say it is every day we as a community, I think, get better at auditing, and the brilliant people who do the auditing of smart contracts, they get better and better and better at their job. So, we are safer every day that we survive.
Right.
We are also, I guess, technically, we should be safer every time we have an incident that we can move on from and learn from without saying, holy crap, the whole system just imploded.
Right. Now, to better understand the liquidity pools, once your money is essentially lent out, and whatever company you are lending to, what is stopping them from not repaying that loan, or is it possible?
So are you thinking of like someone like a compound where I lend and others are borrowing?
So yeah, I guess, and maybe this is a concept I need to better understand, is when you're putting your money in the pool, are other people like taking from that pool to accept loans, or is it like Compound now has this pool and they control the funds?
There's two different concepts. There's lending, and then there's being a market maker.
Okay.
So when people put money into Uniswap or Curve, what we're actually doing, we're putting our liquidity. So let's pretend it's the Curve Y pool. It just has a bunch of stable coins: DAI, USDC, Tether, and True USD. By me becoming a liquidity provider in that pool, I'm just depositing stable coins, and I'm accepting the fact that I could walk away with more Tether and less DAI, or more USDC and less DAI. But as everyone is trading, as someone, let's pretend that you then go to Curve. I provided liquidity. You go there and you're like, I need DAI. I got USDC. I'm going to trade it. When you trade it, the trading fee that you pay, I earn a proportion of that. So let's pretend that I own 1% of the entire pool. It's a $1 million pool, and I have 10%. I have, what is that? $10,000 in it. I own 1%. I earn 1% of the fee that you just paid. I earn 1% of every fee that gets paid. That's my return. I'm relying on those smart contracts to continue to provide this utility of trading. That's what Uniswap and Curve do. Different than that, with Compound, this is a lending and borrowing pool. And so I go to Compound and I'm like, hey, I'll give you my DAI. I would like to earn whatever the interest rate is on it. I know that other folks are going to go in and they're going to borrow those funds, but they are paying a higher interest rate than what I'm earning. And so it allows them to borrow. Maybe they borrow DAI to go, they could go use that DAI to do whatever they want. But at the end of the day, they have collateral that they put into the system, which is normally ETH, something like Ether. And so let's pretend that Ether now starts falling in price. Well, Compound will liquidate their Ether if it gets to a point that the price is so low that if they don't liquidate it, they're not going to be able to pay me back as a lender. So technically, if you throw out all the other insane risks to DeFi, I actually sleep better at night on the fact that I am really being protected by math, versus when you look at legacy finance, which also uses a lot of math. legacy finance could make a mistake because there could be people who are making decisions to continue to extend credit to those who do not deserve to be able to borrow. You know, that goes back to like 2008, 2009
Right.
type stuff. What would have happened in 2008, 2009 if Compound was the bank is they would have said, you know, F off, like we're liquidating your collateral and we're going to do it with Ether, which is very, very liquid, and we can easily sell it immediately for the value that we need to ensure that all of our lenders get paid back. So that's kind of that's trying to connect the dots to like more simpler, like, you know, banking concepts.
Right. And I guess that you bring up a good point. And that was one of the first things that went to my head is the repackaging of subprime loans in 2008.
Yeah.
Can that happen inside of this space somehow, some way? What are your thoughts on that?
I think like an equivalent of that would be pretend that Compound is allowing people to borrow by putting up really crappy collateral. You know, right now they only have 9 different markets, and those are pretty like premier liquid tokens. I mean, you can. There's actually a few in there that I'm not too fond of, but like DAI and Ether, and even like, you know, you can go down the rabbit hole of criticizing Tether, but Tether is the most liquid stable coin regardless. So when you look at what goes in, actually, let me take that back a sec. Tether cannot be used as collateral as far as I know. So never mind. So we have DAI, USDC, and Ether that you normally use as collateral in Compound. So that would be a compromise, I think, if we were to start to see really like, you know, see yams. Mm-hmm. If they said, hey, you can deposit yams, well, that's crazy because it's very illiquid, and we're going to have problems if the price of yam is suddenly collapsing like it did. And now my lenders are screwed because we were irresponsible and we allowed borrowers to borrow their precious DAI in exchange for holding this really shitty collateral like a subprime mortgage. So that's the key. And that's why like governance matters when people say, oh, these tokens, I have no thesis personally on like what the USD value should be of these different tokens. But I will say this from a utility perspective, it's very important because if someone gains all of these governance tokens, they could vote to say, you know what? I own all the yams in the world, and now I'm voting to enable Yam to be the 10th market in Compound, and now suddenly you've got huge problems. So
okay. No, I appreciate you. That's a very good insights, and I love how you're able to just break this down to very like bite-sized chunks because DeFi is complex, and like a lot of people hear it. It's the big buzz right now, and they don't know like the different segments inside of the space. Now, I wanted to touch on the difference is there a difference between staking and then the DeFi space itself and kind of where that fits in the puzzle?
So it depends on how you define staking. Staking for me means that I'm depositing some asset and I'm leaving it for some amount of time, and I'm going to earn a reward, or you can think of it as interest, however you want to think about it. I earn a reward by putting my collateral into something, or my assets into something. So staking is a term that's been used to describe when people deposit crypto into centralized exchanges. You know, they'll say, hey, this is a staking program. It really means lend us your assets, we'll pay you something for it, and they're going to go do something with those assets. And most of the time that's a black box, like, you know, it's a centralized exchange. We have no idea. I'm not accusing them of doing anything malicious with it. I'm just saying, like, clearly they're doing the staking program for a reason. They're going to go use your funds to hopefully earn more money. Otherwise, why the hell would they take on all of this risk and all this money? Different than that is like ETH2 staking, or staking that you see. When we use staking in DeFi, it means it's permissionless for me to go deposit this. What I'm using should be completely controlled by the code or the smart contracts. And once I deposit that, yes, there should be some mechanisms that are automated to providing me a return. And so like when I stake Ether in the future, I'm going to stake it because it helps to secure the network, and I get a reward from that. And that's I am providing a utility, to help provide
Right.
security to the network. When we used staking earlier, though, here's an example. Like, this is how simple and stupid it actually is. So I go and deposit my stable coins into the Curve SUSD pool. It's just a bunch of stable coins. I'm providing that so that people can trade between stable coins, and I'm going to earn a part of the trading fees when they trade. In order for me to get paid through the yield farming or liquidity providing program with Synthetics doesn't know who I am. They don't know what wallet I have. They need me to take the IOU token that Curve provides me. So, hey, Curve, here's my stable coins. And they're like, yo, man, here's your IOU. Bring this back when you want your shit. Then I take the IOU and I go to Synthetics and I'm like, yo, man, I want to get paid for this program. And they're like, all right, just deposit your IOU here. Now we're in control of your IOU and we're going to pay you. When you're done with the program, we'll give you back Synthetics. We'll give you back this IOU. Then you can take your IOU back to Curve and you can get your stable coins. So notice I'm trusting two different protocols. I'm trusting Curve to not screw up, and I'm trusting Synthetics to not screw up. So if Synthetics actually screws up here, I will lose on both fronts because I'll have lost my IOU back in Curve. And that's why like reputation matters, but more importantly, like knowing that there's smart contract audits. And then honestly, I feel like even just knowing that there's audits isn't, that's not you don't just toss money into something because there's an audit. I mean, someone could put on their website, we're audited, but they're not if they don't have the report. And then can you read the report and know what's in it? I can't. I could read it and try, but I would probably it would sound like a bunch of mumbo jumbo to me. So it's really difficult. And there's DeFiScore.io, which is a really helpful way to gauge how safe is the lending platform according to like the most popular DeFi lending platforms.
Okay. Now when it comes to ETH and how DeFi essentially started was on ETH.
Yeah.
If you could do it all over again, would you use ETH as the part of the building blocks of DeFi or not?
I mean, absolutely. At this point, it's the native token of Ethereum. I think what's cool though is we don't have to make that decision. So like to me, like Ether is a store of value. It's proven itself as a store of value. It does not have, it's only got half the lifetime of Bitcoin. So, it's hard for me to ever compare the two because one is very focused. Bitcoin's very focused on being a store of value. At least now it is. I think at one point there was thought it would be digital cash. But anyways, it focuses on that. It's slow and steady. There's less of a concern about how to speed up transactions. Things like that they're secondary. The security of that chain is the most important thing, at least for now. With Ethereum, we're talking more about programmable money. We're talking more about really what's nuts is I wrote an article for CoinDesk a few weeks ago about this. A few years ago, the criticism was that DeFi, or not DeFi, but Ethereum in general, is trying to do too much. And that was a very valid criticism. It was like, hold on. So Bitcoin is a store of value and you're going to do what? Everything else. What do you mean everything else? Like everything in finance else. Oh, good luck with that. It was, right. And at times I've understood, I think that is why some Bitcoiners would get really pissed off because it's like, are you kidding me? Do you have any idea how hard we've worked just to establish Bitcoin to where it's at? So I empathized with that. But the thing is the bold experiment is working out. It's not just working out, it's succeeding. And we're at a point where everything is being built on Ethereum. We'll have lots of other cool things get built on other chains, and we'll have an interoperable future without question. But Ethereum is going to be a very large landmass in that universe. And so, yeah, it's been exciting to see that take off. And at the end of the day, I mean, I look at Ether is the money that powers this highway that has everything built on it. And Ether is it's the native token that I can use since the beginning of time to collateralize, to send us, as a medium of exchange. So but it comes with the downside of it is that Ether has volatility to it, just like Bitcoin. And so if someone is thinking to collateralize stable coins, hey, there's a lot less risk in that. You can collateralize with stable coins and you're not worried about whether the price is going to drop. You could have the peg fail, but still you're not worried about that price dropping and getting liquidated. But like all stores of value, I guess like the point is, are more and more people believing that this is a store of value? And I would say with Ether, I mean, it's very clear that more and more people are believing it because you look at how many people are using the Ethereum network and the gas prices are literally over 300 gwei, which they were previously at 30 gwei and we were all complaining. And 6 months ago, they were under 10 gwei. So right now, the demand for blocks on Ethereum is outrageous. And that's, to me, that's part of the thesis of thinking, this is why I think Ether is valuable and it will continue to be valuable. And as its issuance decreases to less than that of Bitcoin with ETH2, I think that's a part of the meme that needs to get out for people to say, hold on a sec, this thing is doing all it's doing and its issuance is less than Bitcoin. Does it have a limited supply? No, it doesn't. Why not? Well, it's because it's meant to help secure the chain long term. Oh, okay. What about Bitcoin? It's got a limited supply. Well, how are they going to secure the chain in the future? Nobody knows. That's right. It's the can that gets kicked down the road. And that's not, again, there are folks that are thinking about that. That's right. A fair assessment, but that's it. It's two different approaches. At the end of the day, I mean, I think they're both super interesting, and I continue to maintain exposure to both Ether and Bitcoin. I am more exposed to Ether, so I'll call that bias out.
Yeah. So Ether is essentially the highway easy pass that you have in your car, and every time you're doing a transaction, you're getting scanned on the easy pass and you're using ETH to essentially fuel that payment. And then when you get off an on-ramp to a DeFi application, and it's going to cost some ETH to kind of get in and out of that.
Dude, that's great. I haven't heard anybody say that. Yeah, it's a nice way to think about it. It's because it was called gas forever. It still is. And it should just be, that's where the ETH is money meme comes from, is that it is money in order for Ethereum to do shit for me. I have to pay the Ethereum network to execute that transaction. And so what am I using? I'm using Ether. What do you call something when you pay to have someone else do something for you? I call that money. And so ETH is money, and if DeFi is your bank, then ETH is the money that you use at that bank. What questions did you have about Yam?
Oh my gosh. All right. So first of all, so now that we understand the liquid pools and yield farming, how does it all tie in to what Yam is? Can you tell us what are the fundamentals behind it, and what was recently happened with the bug?
Yeah. So yam.finance it's a fork of all sorts of actually, let's go back a sec. Fork is a bad word to use. A lot of people don't even know what that means. So yam.finance copied a bunch of ideas that have worked relatively well in other DeFi applications. A little bit of synthetics, a little bit of the urine.finance protocol, when the way that they issued it's called a Wi-Fi token, YFI. And then the last one, which I'm not going to say it's a good idea, but I don't have any judgment of it, is Ampleforth. So they used the idea that Ampleforth uses, where it's an elastic supply, and they aim to adjust the supply according to, where the price is. So the goal of yam.finance was to issue a token that quote unquote has no value. And that token, though, obviously has a value once buyers and sellers step in. So what is happening is on the first day, which this is only supposed to take place over 7 days, it's kind of covering all the concepts we've covered here. There were, I think, 9 different options. You would go to yam.finance and you would deposit one of the 9 assets. So there was things like Lend from Aave, SNX from Synthetics, Maker, like MKR from Maker, Weeth, like Wrapped Ether, and Wi-Fi was another one of them. So I'll give an example of what I did. I went in knowing that this platform is not audited, that this platform could end up having a smart contract bug where my funds get locked permanently. There could be something like the DAO where someone's able to drain funds from it. There's a lot of risk here. So I put in for me, an insignificant amount that I was like, if I lose this, I'll be able to live with myself. But I'm down to experiment because I want to try everything in DeFi, unfortunately. And so I put some Wi-Fi in, and now every time I refresh the page, it's continuously paying me this new token called Yam. Now, what happens in the meantime is there are other folks like myself who are collecting that. Like I can harvest it was the term that was there. So I could basically say, hey, I want my rewards. I can take those rewards, leave my Wi-Fi continually earning more Yam. And now I'm going to go provide liquidity to Uniswap. I'm going to put my Yam into a pool, and I'm going to say, hey, everyone, you can trade back and forth between my Yam and whatever token it was, which I think at the time was ETH. So now people have the option of buying this. This to me is actually where things get dangerous. And there's no one to give permission or to stop me from providing liquidity on Uniswap. That's what a DEX is. There's no coin listing. There's no approval process. All it takes is me to be brave enough to say, you know what? I'll put my Yam in there and you guys can buy and sell it. Wherever the price shakes out is what it is. So people start to do this. Well, then what happens is there's so little supply of Yam that now people are bidding it upwards. People are trying to buy it. This is the part that bothers me. And this is something I can't control people because they're adults. They have their own money. They can do what they want. And DeFi is all permissionless. There's no way for me to stop them. So people are buying this because they're speculating on the Yam. Meanwhile, me and lots of people you can classify me wherever you want in this spectrum, but like I'm there kind of having fun with like a money game, watching the Yam emojis stack up. And I think I earned a total of about 37 Yam.
Wow.
Now, at one point, Yam went up to $100. I only had like 1 Yam at this time. So I was like, $100, that's cool. But I mean,
right.
I'm going to earn more. And then this is a time now where others are clearly buying it. Someone has bought Yam on Uniswap now for $100. That person stands to lose a lot. I stand to lose all of my liquidity, which actually, at this point is, I said it's an amount that I decided I was willing to lose if things were to go wrong. But this other person has now bought a token for $100 that could go down to 0 at any point. And that's exactly what happened. About 24 hours into the experiment, they discovered a bug. Now, this makes sense. It was unaudited. And they told everyone, this token's valueless. Be careful. Don't put your money into this. Well, what do you think people did? There's a lot of people who have made money who can do what I was doing, except to a much greater degree. These are the whales that have humongous amounts of like money at stake. And so they're thinking, well, I'll put a little tiny amount for me. Well, as a whale, I mean, that could be, tens of thousands of dollars, $100,000, whatever they want to put in. They put the money in, they're earning Yam. And what ends up happening now, though, is this bug gets discovered. And they realize that they need to vote for an upgrade in the proposal, an upgrade in the protocol to fix this bug. And I'm really like dumbing this down. There's a lot more like nuance to it, but in all honesty, it kind of flies over my head. So they put out an announcement saying, hey, everyone, if you're into this, what's going to happen is we're not going to be able to continue to make upgrades to this proposal unless we vote for this thing before X time. I think it was like 8 a.m. UTC, because at 8 a.m. UTC, this thing called a rebase happens, and it's going to really screw everything up. And so, end of the story is they create this really simple button that says delegate. So what I'm doing is what have I done so far? I've deposited some assets. I've earned some of this imaginary new asset
IOU,
called
right?
Yam. And I have no idea. The Yam was worth $100. Now it's down to $12. It's fluctuating in value. But so far, the only thing I've personally lost is gas. I've paid a little bit of Ether, even with the high gas prices, and I've lost that. So they say, hey everyone, if you harvest the yams, put it into your wallet essentially, and then give us your voting rights, we can collectively vote to upgrade this thing and ensure that we fix this bug. Well, everyone does it, and it's actually kind of like a little milestone slash bit of success. But a few hours later, it turns out that there's actually something else wrong there. They have to maintain some balance that they end up not being able to maintain. So in other words, like they're basically one step away from making this save of the protocol. And I think like the real downfall of this is this was overnight. Like I'm sleeping. I've delegated. The worst thing that can happen to me at this point is some other unforeseen bug comes up, and my money, my Wi-Fi that's staked, that becomes at risk. But I go to bed thinking like, I mean, Yam could go to zero, whatever. That's what happens then. They announce like, hey, we actually can't save this or fix it, and Yam price goes to zero pretty quickly. And I'm sure it's above zero. It doesn't ever truly like go to zero.
Right.
There's always like someone to speculate to want to buy something. And so I think the thing that is the most painful, and again, other than one person that I personally know, is if you bought Yam at whatever price point, it's essentially gone to zero. And that's the part to me that no matter what warnings you put out, that's the type of thing that I don't think it's not good for us. It's not good for Ethereum. It's not good for DeFi, because it will burn at least a few people. And those few people will then say, what the hell is this? Like, this is a scam,
Right.
Even though the people behind it, there is no intention to scam. They're not trying to hurt people, and they don't even own any part of those yams. Like it's not like they had a supply and that they were able to then go sell it. But at the end of the day, the question becomes like, well, whose responsibility is this? And I'm not going to go too much farther into. I've like talked way too much about this, but I mean, there's other projects that have notably had bugs who were crucified. The best example is Hedgick. Hedgick had a bug where funds got locked. The founder ends up reimbursing everyone, and those funds that were locked, which was I think about $10,000 at the time, are lost forever. So it's a similar thing where it's like someone doesn't have. They've tried to abstract away the centralized control to do the right thing, but at the same time, we're all dealing with like a Wild West new frontier of new applications and lots of shit that we don't know because there's bugs that come up in the code. So I think like my takeaway from all of this was, I mean, clearly we shouldn't be launching applications that aren't audited, but at the same time, it's kind of cool to see the community come together. But I also don't like the fact that people there are some who bought the token and are going to feel burned by it, actually having lost money. And I think about the person who has not a lot of money that could have been burned by that. But then at the same time too, like I've actually been kind of surprised in a good way to see people being sort of supportive of like, well, I mean, the warnings were there and like we knew this was experimental. But then I'm like, okay, well, let's be forgiving to teams like Hedgick, which like I understand that there's still mistakes made, but like let's be equally forgiving to everyone in this space. If that person did not come with malicious intentions, and that person demonstrated a certain amount of competence. It's a dicey thing. It's like, it's hard to define, like, what is a scam? Is it the intention to actually hurt someone? Well, by that standard, I mean, yam.finance is clearly not a scam. I believe it's a crazy experiment that blew out of control. Like,
Right.
I don't think they ever dreamed that. I think there was like $500 million that went into it. Was $500 million lost? No. Most of the funds are just staked in the application, and people probably did what I did. I just woke up and I pulled my money out, and I was like, okay. I mean, that's the end of that. My Yam is worth zero. Who gives a crap about this? It's all done.
Right.
There were some, though, that were trying to amplify their earnings by being in a Uniswap pool with Yam. And if you're in that Uniswap pool and it goes to zero, well, now your money in the pool has decreased, because it's decreased by whatever the Yam going to zero is. That's how much I've lost. I've lost a percentage of the amount of money I put in. So anyways, that's trying to summarize it. And I mean, I don't know. End of day, like, I'm happy it's done.
Yeah. Well, I noticed it was kind of the buzz on crypto Twitter over the past 24 hours, obviously with that big announcement. But it does bring up a couple things, though. And it reminds me of this centralized nature of some of these projects, where it's a double-edged sword, right? Like, do you want to be able to have that fail-safe where somebody can step in the situations like DAO, in the situations like the Yam team tried to do? And that's kind of the ultimate question: is it the purists that want this DeFi completely 100% decentralized and understand what some of those side effects may be with these IOU tokens being traded and stacking the risk, like you mentioned earlier? But dude, awesome job of breaking that down. Do you have anything else? What are your top 3 DeFi apps that you're using today?
So actually, one other thing with that,
Sure.
just to call out, just because I worry about the risk, and I again, there's like a lesson to be learned from this.
Right.
So you called out the fact that there can be a purist who says everything needs to be fully decentralized. Okay, I agree with you. I would like for that, but like, does it need to be from day one? Because it seems pretty pragmatic to be able to shut down the application with an admin key and say, all right, we discovered that there's a bug like what happened in the DAO hack. So that part of it, to me, I'm pretty like rational, I think, and pragmatic about it. Lots of teams launch with this ability. I know the one that I thought about more recently was when the Ren protocol started allowing us to tokenize Bitcoin onto Ethereum. I don't know if they still have this, but there was a pause function. It was there to be, rational about the fact that there could be some disaster that comes up, or they could discover something, and that this is new, crazy, innovative technology. So I'm in favor of that. At the same time, one thing we didn't call out, one of the biggest risks is there's going to be a team that's going to launch something like yam.finance, and they're not going to have the people behind it. Not everyone knows them, but they're pretty like common names in Ethereum. They're people that like, they have, built up goodwill and like they've worked with lots of projects. And so that's why it actually skyrocketed. People saw it and they're like, well, these are good people like in our community that build, or these are people that like we generally trust. Right, but then it comes back to like, well, should we trust an unaudited application or protocol? And the answer is you shouldn't. So like, end of day, like my biggest concern is what will happen is a team will launch similarly, and what they'll do is they'll maintain that admin key, that control. People will be piling money in like, oh man, this is like that super fun thing we did with the yams. And they're putting all their money in, and then they literally are like, okay, see you guys later, and basically just transfer the funds to their own wallet and exit. So that's why at the end of the day, this is another like thing that we survive as a community. And I think it's good because it like gut checks a lot of people about where they're putting their money, without us being like nannies to them. And, like, it's not like, again, I can stop people from putting their money in. I put some of my own money into it. I wanted to try it. I think it's, this is stuff that I play with all the time. I play with all the different DeFi apps, but I also accepted and knew the fact that I'm like, I could lose every bit of that. So that's, anyways, I hope that's clear. If folks have questions too, just tweet at me, because I really like, the risk is the most important thing to better understand. And like every day I make a DeFi tutorial, the end of my video where I recap all the risks, I feel like it just gets longer and longer because I keep thinking of more and more like, oh yeah, that could go wrong, that could go wrong. And you're better off being knowledgeable of this stuff and knowing it, because then at the end of the day, you can make better decisions about, I'll say not you, but me, since I'm not a financial advisor. I try to make better decisions about where I put my money, and not live to regret, like, oh, the bull market started, but I blew all my money on yams. Oh, God damn it.
Right. Yeah. It's understanding too, like, I'm not a financial advisor either, but having been in the space now, you kind of know a little bit of how to navigate the land and where you're willing to expose yourself to some of these risks. And it's very important, like you said, to understand those risks so you know what you're getting involved with, and understanding like you're not putting your whole portfolio into some of these unaudited projects that are the new buzz. Very cool concepts. And like, I love that there's this experimentation and this creation happening inside this space. And I really appreciate you just walking us through the step-by-step and keeping me up to date, our community up to date, and just learning, because I think that's so important right now, is demystifying a lot of these things and breaking it down to bite-sized chunks.
Absolutely. If anyone is ever wanting to protect themselves against smart contract bugs, you should check out nexusmutual.io. This is actually going back to your like top three apps.
Yeah.
That would be one of the top three. Find smart contract cover. It works. They've done payouts where it's essentially DeFi insurance. You have protection against a smart contract bug. You can buy cover for anything over 30 days for as long as you want or as short as you want. And you can buy it for nearly all the different DeFi applications. Nexus even was offering a bit of coverage. Someone took the other side of the bet and put up some NXM. They staked it against the yam.finance contract. Now, nobody bought it. If someone had bought the yam.finance, yam.finance coverage on Nexus, they would have been able to get a payout. That is exactly what they cover, is a bug. They don't cover every risk, but if it is a smart contract bug and it's discovered, even if I don't lose my money on it, there's a payout. That's basically you're betting against a bug being there or not being there. So Nexus Mutual is absolutely top of the list. If you go to DeFiDad.com, it's one of the most recent videos. I did a whole tutorial on how to buy smart contract cover. I'd say the other one is, man, it's so tough because there's so many that people are using regularly. But when I think about like newbies, especially, or anyone who, not even a newbie, you could be a crypto veteran, but you're starting to explore DeFi and like how to participate as a liquidity provider in Uniswap and Curve and, or even like work with Yearn.finance. I would say Zapper.fi. They are zaps. They allow you to zap your money into a DeFi, opportunity. So you can become a liquidity provider and just basically you go to a list on Zapper.fi under invest, and I can look and see what are the monthly returns or the returns over the last month. And then if I have Ether or I have SNX or Lend or the Kyber token or DAI, whatever you've got in your wallet, it'll do the swap for you and put it all into the proportions necessary. And now I'm earning in those different pools. So it takes away all the complexity of participating in DeFi and turns it into like a button, which is
That's
cool.
awesome. I love that. And that's going to get us to the mass adoption that we need, I think, is simplifying a lot of these complex ideas, which are great and brilliant, but the one button never fails, man.
The one button. The last one, I'd say it goes back to a wallet. And it's funny because if someone watches this like 3 months from now, I'm sure the program will be over. But I just did a tutorial for Bankless on how I use the Dharma Wallet.
Yep.
So Dharma is a self-custody Ethereum wallet. And inside the wallet, they built an interface for Uniswap, and they are subsidizing the gas and trading fees. Well, if you go to Uniswap and you do a $20, $50, $100 trade right now, you're going to pay 2 transactions, and you're probably going to pay about, I mean, with the price of gas at 300 Gwei today, I mean, I'd estimate like it could be 20, 25 bucks. That's outrageous, you know,
Yeah.
and like no one at that point, I would just think to myself, I can wait. Like there's no reason for me to do this stuff. I can do it in a week when prices go down. But if I'm using the Dharma wallet, if I transfer, let's say, some Ether from another wallet to my Dharma wallet, or if I have Ether in Coinbase, I could send it in. Or if I'm in the US, I can use a debit card and I can actually convert US dollars into DAI. Then I can do the trade, and it is essentially free. The rates can be a little bit different. Dharma is trying to account for slippage and rates that are constantly changing. So if you look at the rate you pay with Dharma for Uniswap versus if you go directly to Uniswap, most of the time the rate on Uniswap will be just a little bit better. But looking at the math, like just doing it myself and playing with it, I'm like, I mean, whatever. Like I paid $5 extra for my trade, but I didn't pay the 20 to 25 bucks in gas. Yeah. So what am I complaining about? You know, I netted out $20 of savings. So that would be it. I absolutely, it's an insane program. They're subsidizing it. It's probably not going to last forever. And I have no relationship with Dharma. So there's like, when I say that, I mean, I'm just a user. I just think it's really freaking cool that they're doing that.
Awesome, man. Well, that is going to wrap things up for today's show. I appreciate you jumping on here, and I know our listeners and our viewers are going to love this because I've had a lot of questions come my way about DeFi, and I'm like, DeFi Dad is my guy.
Oh, dude, anytime. I'm moving close to you. I'm going to maybe eventually we can actually like high five in person. Yeah, no, I love what you do with the show, and I mean, the videos that I make are they're a little boomer-like sometimes. It's like a boomer got a hold of iMovie, and but yeah, I really admire. Like, I think like the editing you do, it's great, man. It's great storytelling, and like actually, I should pick your brain sometime about how to make better videos. So keep doing.
I'm here to help you, man. You have actually helped me out. I had a boo-boo in this, and I wrote a big thread about it. And
yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
DeFi Dad helped me out. We were like messaging back and forth for like 2 hours. All it boiled down to was an auto population on Brave browser for the Brave wallet, and always double check where you're sending your funds.
Thank God. Made me so like, I mean, it was, you know, money's precious. I grew up in a house, you know, $50 or $100 meant the world to me. So when I see people like possibly losing any money, I mean, even like I said, like 15, 20, $100, like it's like, oh God,
yeah.
Like let's figure out a way to save that money. So yeah, glad you're all safe now. That's new. I would have never known that. Auto population with the Brave browser. It's something the next time someone asks, it just, every time we figure out another sort of like, you know, roadblock or challenge, it just helps us to educate more people on like, watch out for the auto population thing.
Exactly. Got to be careful for those speed bumps out there. But now, how do people get in touch with you, find out more information? I know you're always posting awesome tutorials. I just watched one before we jumped on the show here. Where can people find you, man?
Yeah. So there's a few places. The main one is DeFiDad.com. That's where I post all of these. These are, you know, free YouTube tutorials. I think it's really important to provide all of this education so that anyone can learn. Get a little bit nervous about doing it on YouTube because I realize they could shut me down any day, and it's definitely not permissionless tech, but it's a great distribution channel. The other thing is, if you follow me on Twitter at DeFi_Dad, I do tend to like react to everything that's going in the market, and it's not financial advice. I come from more of like a software user. I have, you know, no background working on like a Wall Street. I'm not a financial advisor, so I shouldn't be giving financial advice. But at the end of the day, like if you're stuck because your MetaMask transaction's stuck, that's the type of stuff where I'm like, I've struggled with it. I know how to unstick that transaction. If you're wondering what staking is, I can explain that. You know, if you're wondering what is this yam.finance thing, like that's the type of stuff I'm I try to I don't know, give some insight and make it a little bit simpler.
Thank you for joining us, man. And hopefully I will have you on again very soon.
Oh, absolutely. Anytime. I love coming on. So much fun. Great to see you, man.
Good deal, man. Thanks for coming on.